Paul Bates here, and yesterday I took you on a tour of the boat, and this lifestyle isn't for everybody. And today I'm going to go over of how we got here. I've been wanting to do the video for a while, and I think it's important to tell the story because there's a lot. It's not a complicated story, and I'm going to keep it as simple and straightforward as I possibly can. So, back in 2008. We were in the housing crisis. We bought a house in Las Vegas. We moved from Spanish Fort, Alabama to Las Vegas. We bought a house there. We had it built. And anyway, I just, a couple of key points here is I remember sitting down at that meeting as we're closing the house, and I said, man, we're paying way too much money for this house. Anyway, long story short is we did pay too much money for the house. We're way in over our heads. We're like, it's almost a $400,000 mortgage. We have not much credit card debt, but we had a motorhome payment, we had a UTV payment, and we did have maybe one or two credit cards. Anyway, we were heavily in debt. Everything was about making the payments. Had a pretty good job. I was working at an exhibit company down there in Vegas, and right at the six-figure salary type thing, or hourly. I was working hourly then, but it was six figures income. Anyway, so everything's going okay, but we are struggling just like probably every other American, and to make our bills. We just paid our bills. That's all we could do. But we did have a motorhome, and we did have the UTV, and we did have a lot of fun with all that stuff. So the 08 housing crisis hits. This is 07, 08, the housing crisis hits. And what was unexpected is we both ended up losing our jobs. So now we have to make decisions. So our decision, and it was a hard decision. It wasn't easy. I remember laying on a blow-up mattress in the house because we had lost all of our furniture. It all got repossessed or taken. And we had no money. I had zero money. And I just remember that feeling, and I just wake up, me and Bev were fighting. It's when Bev quit smoking and I quit chewing tobacco because we couldn't afford it. We didn't have any money. We were that broke. So in the 08, when that all happened, I said, I'm done with this. I just looked at Bev one night and I just said, I'm done. I am absolutely 100% done with this. It's never going to happen again. I'm over it. So from that point forward, I called a buddy of mine. Long story short, I borrowed $2,000 from him, and then we started just hustling. I took that $2,000, I ran down to LA, I picked up supplies, and then we started doing these garage sales out of the house. Now, we're not making any payments on the house anymore, and we've decided, that we there's nothing we can do here. We have to file bankruptcy and blah, blah, blah. Long story short is we got to stay in the house for 2 years, and I took advantage of that 2 years. And what I did was we saved every penny that we could. We eventually did find some gigs. I don't want to call them jobs. They were gigs. I was driving a bus for some private individuals, which paid pretty decent. It was $2,000 a month. And all I had to do is maintain the bus, and it wasn't like a full-time gig. And then I would have to drive it for them every once in a while. And then Bev was, I believe she was collecting unemployment, because when she lost her job from the doctor, she was collecting unemployment. Then we started and took all of our knowledge and went to Yuma, where we made a little bit of money. And I want to say when I left Yuma, I probably had, $25,000, $30,000. Then when we got done with that, we went over to LA and we said, hey, I was gonna buy a boat and try and keep vending right there. Well, that part of it didn't work out, but we still had the house in Vegas. We're not making any mortgage payments on it, but we are paying the utilities on it and keeping it up. We kept the property up, actually. So then we get back, that whole thing failed, basically, and it ended up costing us about $10,000, so we went backwards a little. So then I went and bought an RV, and I put that beside the house because Bev was not comfortable about, hey, we're going to lose the house here. Eventually they're going to come and take the house from us. We don't know when or what's going to happen here, but eventually it's going to happen. So I went and bought an RV for us with that money, and I had it parked on the side of the house. That way if somebody comes knocking, all we have to do is jump in our RV and we can go, and it's all paid for. Now we have no credit card debt, we have nothing, and we have a little bit of cash. So I went and looked at a trawler down in California. I found the ad on it, and I went and looked at a trawler. And I said, well, that's what I want to do. You know, if I'm going to start my whole life over again, I want to go live on a trawler. So we went over to California, and I said, the guy's asking $35,000 for it, but let's just go look at the boat. Because we could offer him $20,000 if the boat was worth it. So we did. We drove down there. We made an appointment. We drove down there that weekend. We met the guy, and we looked at the trawler. And at that time, he wasn't ready to sell. It was a nice trawler. It was in good shape. It was a 1978 CHB trunk trawler. And it was in pretty decent shape. The guy used it. He was a tech guy, and he used it to go. Him and his buddies would go back and forth to Catalina in it all the time. So I went down and met the guy, shook his hand, and I offered him the $20,000. He says, right now I can't do it, but let's see. If you give me $25,000, I'll let you have the boat. I said, I don't have it, so it's a pretty easy decision for me. But if something changes and you decide you want to sell it to me for $20,000, just call me, let me know. And if I haven't found something else, we'll make the deal. So he says, okay. So me and Bev left, and by doing that, we made personal contact with him, and we let him know that we're serious. That's the two things that happened on that first meeting. Now, I just go on, I go living my life there. We go back to Vegas, we're in our house, and we know it's getting close to time to having to leave the house. And we're not exactly sure what we're going to do now, but the guy calls me. And I get a job, and it was for the same company that I had worked for the last 10 years. But I went in through the union, and I got a union job. So he calls me. He says, hey, I'll sell you the boat, and I'll take you $20,000. This was the end of 2009, and it was rough, really rough. We got kind of, I don't want to say lucky or bad. Anyway, I said, okay, because this union gig, it's going to be up and over. Pretty soon it'll last 6 or 8 months, and it'll let us save some more money. So I took the job, and we bought the boat, and it was all relatively close to the same amount of time, and this is 2009 going into 2010. So then I worked that job for a little while. I lost the job. We own the boat now, and then right as we were losing the job, they called us because we had signed up for a liveaboard permit down in Long Beach, California, which we got. And we took and we said, yes, we'll take it. So then we had our liveaboard permit, and then we ended up living on that trawler for about 8 months. And the reason that it became only 8 months is because at that time I did good. We paid cash for the trawler, and we had a little bit of cash. But I was literally at the point of, we've done some work to the boat, just like we're doing to this one. And we got it to a point where I could start thinking about other things, and I'm like, I got to get a job, because I didn't have the resources that I have now. I didn't have that. Everything wasn't in place. So the company that I worked for the last 10 years called me and said, hey, do you want to come to work? And I said, yeah, sure. I thought we would leave the boat. We go down there for 6 months, and then we'd be back on the boat, but it didn't work out like that 10 years later. So I ended up selling that trawler about 6 months after I took the job. I said, you know what, I don't have time for it, and so we'll just sell it, and then we'll go back to this lifestyle when the time fits. So fast forward 10 years, what did I do in that 10 years? Well, in that 10-year period, there's a couple things that happen. One is I learned to save money, and I learned to invest money. And, I just did, I don't want to say the right things, because you can even see here, I'm going to link this video right here, because I want to show you guys, this is what I did. We owned the RV that we lived in St. George. We owned the property that we stayed on in St. George not in the end, but in the process of setting all this up. So we didn't have any mortgage payment. We pretty much lived a debt-free life, starting from that 2008 crisis all the way till now. Now, I have had a mortgage payment since then, because we bought a house for 4 years and my parents lived with me, but I was able to recoup all that money, and that's all I wanted to do. I didn't make any money off the house, but I was able to recoup all of my money, and that's all I had planned on doing. So everything that I did from that point forward was about saving money and making money, and investing money and learning how to invest money, and getting a team around me. One of the books I read was from Tony Robbins of how to invest money, and I read that book and I read it over. I probably read it about 5 times. That was a huge changing point. And that didn't come on till later on, because even during this whole 10-year period, it was still 5 years of probably saving before I even had enough money to do anything with, which I felt like. And then it took the next few years, because I went to school. I learned, I went to Warrior Trading. I learned how to use his day trading. Everybody wants to be a big day trader, but it didn't work out for me. And I just can't do it. There's something about it that just doesn't work with me. But then fast forward another 3 years, and then I started, I got into the cryptos. It was all by accident. And then I really studied that market, and then I learned, I figured some things out. And then the stocks, I just figured out what kind of trader I was. I started watching the people the way I want to trade, and then things started to really turn around. And then I figured out how, that money can compound, that you don't always have to work for every dollar that you make. You can actually have your dollars working for you instead of you working for every one of the dollars. And that's kind of where I'm at today. So now I'm not a financial advisor, but I have a few accounts that are well over 6 figures. One is a crypto account, and one is my my stock accounts. So we're in a different situation on this 44-foot trawler that we're in now, because I'm back to that same exact situation that I was 10 years ago when I was living on the trawler down there. But now things have changed. Like, I don't have to go get a job tomorrow. I can wait this out till the first of the year, and I can get the job that I want to get. I've already been offered a few positions at a couple different companies, but I really want to go and do something on my own. And there was a really, I met a couple of really nice people throughout my life, but one was a pretty hardcore Henderson, Alex Coronas. I'll never forget it. And there's 2 statements that he always told me. He says, "Paul, any fool can make money. Try and save some." And that always stuck with me. It always sticks in my head. And he's right. He's absolutely 100% right. So the same guy that taught me that also told me, he says, "Paul, whatever you do in life, if you get your house paid for and you don't have to worry about where you're going to lay your head, life becomes much easier for you." And he's right. To live a debt-free life, you kind of gain your freedom. And I'm just going to use some quick examples here. So, an average guy makes, $6,000 a month. You got between your mortgage payment, your car payment, you got $2,000 that goes out for that. Then you got another, a couple $1,000 for other payments, and you're basically living off of $1,000. But if you take all of those money, let's just say $3,500 in payments that you're actually paying for somebody for debt that you owe, out of that $3,500, you're only paying back maybe $1,000 if you're really lucky. So $2,500 of that is money that just goes to the man, basically, or the banks. And so if you could have that $2,500 back, what would you do with that? And so when you change your mindset, and because the whole world right now, the whole U.S., it's why we're in trouble right now. It's why our country's in trouble right now. It's why we're a debt-driven society, and your boss wants you in debt. The government wants you in debt. Everybody wants you in debt, because then you're a slave to that debt, and that's what they want right now. So it's modern day slavery, basically. And I'm not going to get involved in all that, but when you free yourself of all of that, things really start to change for you, and your life will start to change. And when I was 50 years old, basically 48, it was about 10 years ago exactly. So when I was 48 years old, dead broke, didn't have anything, then I started to figure things out. And why I'm doing these videos and why I'm talking to you is because if I can do this, anybody can do this. And again, just since I've started this America's Great Loop here, I've started a small account with Voyager, and I'll tell you who it is. And I just want to see how fast and how easy it is for me to grow that account. and see if anybody can do what I did in the last, again. And you can. And you just got to put your homework in and do your time. But anyway, it's the short version of our story. And I think it's a story that, I didn't save. I was in a diner in San Francisco doing my job, and a guy asked me, he goes, "Paul, do you have any regrets in life?" The long story short is I'm with him, and he says, "No regret. Do you have any regrets?" And I said, "Yes, that I didn't save any money." And so my story is about that you can, and I don't recommend this to anybody, but you really start to figure stuff out there in your mid-40s. By the time you get to 50, it's over. I mean, the finish line is, you can see the finish line, and you can see, hey, I've really got to straighten up, and I did. And so, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. And that's all I want to say about the subject. And on my next, this is part 2, on part 3, I'm going to tell you how I sustain the lifestyle that we're in and what our plans are for the future. Anyway, Paul Bates, peace out. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Remember, we don't have to mow any grass, worry about paying a mortgage. And the beauty is, I do have a lot of boat projects though. So it's always a trade-off or something. Anyway, peace out. Thanks for watching. I surely do appreciate it. Thanks for you guys' support too. It's been awesome over this doing America's Great Loop and taking the delivery on the boat and stuff like that. Anyway, thanks. Bye.